Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all things lovers of nerddom, welcome to another episode of the Cultured Nerd Podcast. Today, we have the brilliant Gui Agustini. He's an actor, director, Sunspot on X-Men 97. We can't wait to pick his brain, everything nerddom, all about his journey that has brought him here, and all of the weird questions that go in between. I'm strapped in, Taylor's strapped in. Strap yourselves in. Taylor, hit the start button.
So every time I hit the start on that video, I think like, is it too ostentatious or is it right amount? Or
This is amazing, guys. What an introduction. And like me watching this, I was like, wow, this feels like I'm on live TV right now.
Listen, I'm in the town of Hollyweird. That's how we do shows. There was a guy out here warming up the audience, but now we're here. Taylor, please take the reins.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Lee, for joining us today. This has been a lot. This has been a long time coming. For whatever reason, just hadn't worked out until now. So, X-Men 97 is one of these shows that has coming into the season. Everyone was excited. We were hyped. There was a little bit of drama. Everyone was like, "Oh no, it may not be good." And then, as soon as the premiere dropped, every worry went away, and everyone was like, "Holy crap! This is exactly what we were hoping it would be." And I think now, even today, the X-Men 97 show on like Rotten Tomatoes, on Metacritic, on literally every platform, it is the highest rated Marvel property across the board, which is absolutely fantastic for a TV show to come back after 30 years and be like, oh, by the way, we never lost it. And guess what? It's kind of more exciting this time around. So it is a lot of fun for everyone involved. And it's also one of those shows where we live in a society now where everyone skips the intros. They skip everything. They skip around because of streaming. But the moment the X-Men theme song hits, everyone's like, I can't skip the intro. I gotta headbang the whole way through because it's such an iconic show and they captured that spirit. So first things first, Sunspot is the relative new kid on the block. How does it feel to be brought into a show, a cast, an ensemble, a medium that has such a huge background to it, such a huge fan base, and being widely accepted as just you're the new Jubilee on the show, essentially?
Yeah, that is true, Taylor. And by the way, again, guys, thanks for having me. I mean, this whole thing already is like so fascinating, so amazing. You guys rock. From the intro, talking about intros. I was just fascinated just watching it. But yeah, no, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm guilty of like skipping intros and all that, but it's so true also because every intro now is a little different, right? I mean, I was so excited to see Sunspot or Roberto, get his little appearance, in I think it was the third episode or the fourth, but anyway, yeah, I mean, it's just been so nostalgic, like everybody has been saying, and I think everything you just mentioned, Taylor, about like nobody, I think, was expecting it to be what it's been, literally, and very similarly to uh, happen with the show in the 90s, right? I was recently talking to Lenore, who voices Rogue, and she was saying that, right, when they started, I mean, I guess everybody here knows that nobody expected it to be the hit that it was and to have so much repercussion in a positive way. And I think it's very similar to what's happening now, right? So, of course, for me, I mean, I was so excited. It's my first major animation role, and in a property that I grew up watching, a show that I grew up watching, a universe that I absolutely love. So I was super stoked. Also, I started recording this like 2 years ago, so I didn't remember a lot of what was happening. I chose in the beginning not to go back and read the scripts, and I wanted to be surprised. And I literally have had really no clue it was gonna be what it's been, and that I would be living this experience the way I am right now. It's really like, I think for the last couple of weeks that I started to really sink into like what this really is.
Well, a bunch of people are popping out kids and they're watching it with their kids, and you're getting nostalgia from people like Taylor and I, who the show is very influential. It probably got me into comic books. I had comic books, but like now I want to read X-Men stories.
Hmm.
And I also feel that, it's a real great to see Marvel getting back in the animation space. Um, there are other Marvel shows. There are lots of other things. There's kid shows and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
I think one of the things that the show is doing is it's telling watered down versions of the comic books, right? Stories, lines that have happened there, and we're paying homage. We're doing it a little
Hmm.
differently. We're going to cut her sexy outfit up here instead of down here because it looks, it's not as awkward as a conversation that we. Um, so you're getting into people's families. Uh, took 2 years, what you talked about. Do you think that with this attention, that process maybe speeds up a little bit? Because I feel like now that we're seeing these characters expressed like this, let's get a New Mutant show. Let's get the X-Men team over here. Because I can see where these stories go there, and I feel like this is such a great medium for that.
Right.
Uh, what was the recording process like for you? Did you enjoy it? Was this your first soiree into it?
Yes. So no, I had an absolute blast. That I had an incredible experience with the team. In animation, I went back to like get the timing of things correct. I did a part in Marvel's Spidey and His Amazing Friends, as a surfer dude, which I recently found out like JP, who voices Morph, has a part in it, and David Arrigo, who does Mojo, also. We might be in the same episode. I haven't been gone back to see, but that was my first animation project. I had done voiceovers for commercials, dubbing, looping, all that kind of stuff, but not animation until I moved to Los Angeles. I lived in New York uh, most of my time as an actor. And so after the pandemic and after the HBO show I did in 2021, I finally moved to LA. And then through my reps, I started to audition more for animation. And then I got that part. And then I think it was a few months later that I auditioned for the first time uh, for X-Men 97 without knowing it was X-Men. Recently, by the panels that we had at WonderCon, and just like getting to know the cast more. Most of them knew, though it didn't say it was X-Men 97. They knew because a lot of them were doing sort of uh, 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 voice match, or also like the sides were clearly the sides from like the 90s show.
Yeah, if you yell Gene, I'm pretty sure I'm rooting for Cyclops. You know what I mean?
Right. But I did not, like, my sides did say Roberto. I did not put two and two together. And to be very honest, like I didn't really, I guess I didn't even know like him by Roberto da Costa. It's the truth. And it's unfortunate because it's obviously the first Marvel superhero, but in my childhood, I knew the X-Men. I never really knew Roberto that way, and I was not, because of my background in sports, and I guess we'll get into that very soon. I wasn't really into the comic book readings and all that stuff, right? So I had no clue. I just thought it was an animation project. They asked me for a Brazilian. It was a Brazilian character. I did like a version with a very strong Brazilian accent, another one just the way I speak, which usually sounds more neutral, more American. And I sent it out and didn't hear anything. And then 5, 6 months later, in 2022, I get the same audition with a slightly different name. So I remembered I like the sides. I have a really good memory. Like I really remember a lot of things. And I was like, I did this before, but I didn't even go back to see if it was the same sides or anything. But I think it was very similar. And I don't recall if it said Jubilee. I don't think so. I don't think it was anything to do with the actual script. I think it was a dummy script, right? That often happens with Marvel projects. And so I did it again, and I sent it out. And then 2 months later, I got the email, which said by my agent, "Congratulations, Guy, you're going to be a superhero." And I was like, "Whoa, what do you mean? Like, I have no clue what you're talking about because I didn't remember." So I had to go back. I was excited, obviously. I had to go back to like, what is it that I auditioned? That was my first reaction. What is it? What is it? And then as I continued to read, it said X-Men 97. I was like, what? Like, what? So, it was like I was super stoked. I was given the offer and I was like, yes, yes, where do I sign? And that's how it went down.
Are you emotionally prepared for people to do your voice that's just a little bit different, a little bit more Brazilian, back at you and to your face? That people will learn this character, will learn that's what he talks like, and then will say your voice to you. Are you prepared for that?
I would love that, Michael. I think I would
Okay.
have. Yeah, yeah. I think it'd be so cool. I mean, it's such an influence. It's going to be my first time experiencing something like that, and it's like, hey, please, if you guys are so passionate about it, I'm sure you guys have like incredible versions of it, and I'd be so thrilled to experience as well.
So the original X-Men show, when it first came out in 1993, I think a lot of people tend to forget that this show, the first season, the first 13 episodes were all recorded in one hit. They did it all a couple years before. They recorded the whole thing in Canada, and
Hmm.
all the casting was done in Canada. So they had
Yeah.
certain laws, certain things. And then as they were doing it, they started putting out the first couple episodes and said, oh, this is a hit. We got to re-record some characters' lines because it's going to be controversial. So Storm got recast like 3 times. And
Yeah, I sorry, but I learned this
yeah,
recently, and I was talking to Lenora, and she was telling me, I think like 4 times. I don't know if she was, but 3 or 4. And then I heard somebody saying 2 times. And I don't know how many
yeah,
exactly, but
she was the last
three to
Storm, and
the last
she never
storm.
came back. Yeah.
And she was
Uh,
telling me how like they were all like afraid because they didn't like they were like I could be the next.
Mm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she was the only one that apparently went through all those hoops. But with the recording process, they recorded the whole season in one hit, put it out, and didn't think anything of it. And then the show became a massive, massive success on Fox Kids. And they were like, "Oh, maybe we should do another season, like already." And they had to go back, and they just kept pumping out seasons again and again. When they did this for you, you said it was like 2 years ago. This whole journey started. Have they already started talking about like, hey, we're going to bring you guys back for another season, and it's going to be a lot faster turnaround than last time? Have they even had those conversations yet, or is that something that they're still waiting for the rest of the season to keep going?
Yeah, not with me, Taylor. It was only about the first season. And I think like with most TV, contracts of, I mean, even streaming doesn't have to be network. I think any show you usually will have multiple seasons in your contract, right? Like,
Yeah,
you negotiate a deal beforehand. But there were no talks about like, at least with me, like, oh, we're already thinking about second season, this and that. No, no, it was just first season. But I think like with any project, unless it's really specifically a mini series that they're doing like one season thing, right? I think they all wanted to go many seasons and to be successful, right? Um, so there's always a little bit of that expectation, I think, from the creators and
yeah.
the desire. But at least with me, there were no. I had no idea that was going to be so fast. That was going to be like, um, the second season would be like on its way. So already publicly and all that stuff, like even before it premiered and everything. So yeah, to me it was a surprise.
Well, I'm glad that they are investing in that chance. I think the Invincible TV show talks about just how long animation takes, especially if we want it to look like a Saturday morning cartoon. It takes X amount of time. So, I mean, let's give them that time.
Yeah.
Um, I have been so pleasantly surprised that the way that they're utilizing characters, it doesn't feel like I'm playing with toys, but they're doing things that I wanted the characters to do for forever. And
Wow.
I'm so happy to see, when Cyclops is using concussion blasts to move himself around a room, it's like,
That's
this is great
true.
thinking.
That's
There
true.
has been shakeups on the show in terms of that original vision. Are there still enough people put in place that can put these breadcrumbs together to continue this?
I'm pretty sure, Michael. I am very, very confident that the team effort is just so incredible, and everybody so far that I've met from production, right? Like everybody's so passionate. Everybody knows so much about these characters, this universe. I am really like puzzled and like I'm loving this whole experience, and I feel like such a, I'm making my way in, and it's fascinating to me, and I love it so much. So yes, I think so. It's definitely obviously a group collaboration, and it started with the seed, from a creator, like Bo and all that. But I think like there's so many people involved and so many people who are passionate about this that I'm very confident that the way how the seed was planted and how it began, it'll flourish and it will continue, to make its path and continue to be as great as it's been.
Hmm.
So when you're recording these shows, did they have you record your lines individually, or were you guys allowed to play off the other characters that were in the scene with you? Because some shows
Yeah.
do it, everyone's in an island, and some shows do it, everyone's in a room together. How was this one done?
Right. So for me, it was fully solely. I was by myself 100% of the time. At first, I was a little nervous to say this, and recently, again with Lenora, I was chatting with her. She's like, "Oh, that's okay to say." It's like, "Oh, fine," because I think that's more of a norm these days. Uh, but because also my experience with Spidey and His Amazing Friends was, it was a very short one, but it was also by myself. I just thought that maybe that's how it's done, right? I had not done animation prior to COVID, and it makes sense now because of since COVID and the whole technology that it's much easier and I guess cost effective to do it this way, separate. But she was telling me about like the when they were when they did the recording in the 90s, had like 15 of them, in a circle, everybody's there, and you feeding off each. I mean, it must have been so amazing as well, because that's what and she was also saying most of them came from theater, so the whole like acting on camera and theatrical experience, it's very hard to recreate this, any other way. But I think it's marvelous with what they're doing, and everybody being in sync to like bring this to life, in separate ways. It's really remarkable. I know that some of them did record it together. But I don't think, I mean, again, I was by myself, so the team, or like in one episode, all the characters that, or the actors that are part of that episode, I don't think there's not been one that everybody was there and recorded the whole episode together. Um,
It's it's so important to emphasize that you are an actor, you are a voice actor, and if we want our shows to sound like productions where people are interacting with each other, we need to set up those spaces. There's a reason why those recordings are so special. A lot of that is true in Japanese animation, where most of those shows are done with them interacting with each other, and that is a very high standard. Um, I think it speaks to the talent of so many voice actors that you're looking at a wall and still being able to not do monologues, but trying to do a scene, right, with a partner that is not there, but in your mind. So I hope that resonates with people, that we should absolutely be getting these actors together. I think it will only enrich these shows. But the show has to find its audience. It has found its audience. Um, Growing up, though, you said you were not a comic kid, but you were a tennis nerd. Now, does that tennis nerddom also tie into, we always would watch Star Wars when we were together in the tennis group, or was it just tennis 24/7?
That's a good question, Michael. Look, no, as a kid, I really started to take tennis very seriously when I was about 12, 13. I started playing when I was 5, but at one point, like I didn't want to play anything. I played many sports. My parents, were always encouraging me to do many sports. I remember one time, like I was in so many that I was like, I don't want to do anything, and they're like, well, that's not going to happen. You have to choose at least one, and I don't know why I chose tennis, and but I loved, play. I watched all these. I watched a bunch of cartoons. I was so like energetic as a kid. There was a period of my life that any photo that I took, I would like be in a pose, either like a ninja pose
Sure.
or like something. Like it was wild, because everything that I watched, I wanted to represent, and I was very active, and I loved action. And my dad, he loved movies, so I grew up watching movies, a lot of action movies. And so all the, like I said, like Star Wars and all this, like I loved watching all of it, growing up. Um, but but once I started to hit my adolescence, 12, 13, and I really I decided that all of a sudden, like that was my dream. I wanted to become a professional tennis player, and a big influence was one of our former number one players in the world, Gustavo Kuerten, when he won the French Open, and it was massive, and that like had a huge impact in me, and I'm like, oh wow, I want to do that. I want to be like this person, and so I continued with watching movies. I've always been a lover of movies, but yeah, I started to then like play less with my toys, or when I started to like I mean, not it's like get out of a little bit of that and go into like uh tennis nerd, like you said, and I started to like focus all my energy in watching matches and reading stuff and reading tennis books, and I think it was when I was 13 I started I had my first uh, sports psychologist, because I was a little bit of a wreck playing tennis, and I was wild, and so that really like changed a lot of things for me. I read a lot of books,
I love
and
that they tricked you into thinking that was just a regular therapist. They called it sports psychology, but I mean, it did focus you,
a
which is a
lot.
part of it. Um, I love that you talked about representation, that you saw another athlete do it, that you were like, oh, I can do this. This is that level. And I'm so happy that we now have that sort of character on the X-Men, because there's lots of X-Men from all over the world. Let's get them all on there. And then as a kid, I thought people would pose more. As an adult, they don't. You're right. As a kid, there's a lot of like in shows, they pose, or like people do things. I thought that was going to be a thing. People don't pose very often. Maybe for pictures, but it's a passing thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
I do it a little bit like with my hand gestures, because I love this hang loose thing. It's
yeah.
such a
Shock us.
Brazilian thing. So, but
Yeah.
but yeah, not as much.
Uh, okay. Two questions. I'll ask my first dumb question, then back to tennis. I went to Costa Rica, and their saying is "pura vida." Is there a saying like that in Brazil?
Pura vida,
Yeah, pure. It means pure life. When
pure
things
life.
go,
Yes.
when things
Yeah,
are going
yeah.
great, pure life.
Pura vida.
When it just rains and then the sun's gonna come back, pure life. When the car breaks down and like nobody can fix it because you don't know where the guy is, and you're
Oh,
just gonna wait,
really?
and then he's like, "Oh, well, my sister can come, but like the car's gonna be broken for 45 minutes." You go, pura vida.
Pura vida. Wow, I didn't know that, because I actually have not been to Costa Rica, and and I speak Spanish as fluently as Portuguese, because my mom is Argentinian, my father is Peruvian. I lived in Venezuela, so but I've not gone to Costa Rica, so I never heard that. That's very interesting. But something like that, where it's a sentence that can mean so many different things.
Because
I
I
don't.
feel like this is what like that's the Hawaiian like shock. Like yeah, what
Sure,
hang
yeah,
loose.
yeah, that's not very Brazilian, but it's like,
Yeah,
but because Brazil also is so big, and there's so many different regions, that like just like the states,
yeah.
and the culture within these regions are so radically different. There isn't like one particular saying, you know what I mean? I think it's more of a local but there, even like, I know I'm from Sao Paulo, and there isn't like one sentence that you can say regarding so many different things. You know, there's many different expressions for many
Sure.
different moments like you were describing, but not one thing that's very interesting. I like Pura Vida. Pura Vida is great. I like
And
it.
then the national drink is the Pura Vida Guara Sour, which is just fantastic. Get it wherever you can. Drink it at bars. It's a sugary treat. You take hard turn. You take tennis serious at 13. Does this drive and focus drives you through high school, probably into early college? This is everything. When did the dream of tennis go away? And then with that, I can see why the stamina it takes to do tennis, you then are like, well, maybe I do theater. Maybe I go do something, because many of you're on your feet. It's a similar thing. It's a different game plan, but I can see that. So how long to tennis and then this transition into performing? Even though you've always been performing, when did you go, I have to put the racket down. Now we're just going to use this punum to get me some jobs?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, especially again as a kid, I have videos. My dad used to record everything, and so I have a lot of memories because of everything is recorded. And oh my God, I mean, what I used to do, like in terms of music, I also like grew up with a lot of music. So yeah, there's a lot of performance in my being from early ages. But yeah, it was a very interesting turn, and I wish it had been, or maybe not, like something more. Um, Analytical, like you were saying, because I move and this and that, and so maybe I'll do theater. That thought never crossed my mind. It was mostly, so I finished high school. I tried to play professional tennis. So then I was playing professional tournaments. I ended up in Venezuela, and I met uh, the coach of one of my best friends, who is like a brother to me now, and he changed my life. His name is Harold Castillo, and he's like a second dad to me. And so he changed my tennis dramatically. And see, this is something very interesting because I'm all about like you have to go after your dream, you have to go, after what you love, and don't let people tell you you can't do it, right? And this is very interesting. I've been wanting to talk about this because he was the one who literally said to me, like, Guy, you're not going to be a professional tennis player. Just forget it. Like straight up, I had so much respect. He didn't say it right away, but out of everybody that I've trained and I've traveled the world, nobody, had the courage to say that because, either like they try to like be nice, or they want to encourage you, or they just want to take your money. But this guy did it
That's
differently.
He's not
Yeah.
he's not a con artist. He
No.
genuinely gave you a piece of advice that changed your life, even as
What?
difficult as that was to hear. Um, I'm glad that your respect in him was able, and that you took it seriously, because a lot of people would be delusional. So then you took all that drive, and then okay, he actually tells you something truthful that resonates with you, right? Because obviously you're like, oh, that person is a step faster. Their game is that they are getting to that position, which is why you have a sports psychologist. So he tells you this. How do you get depressed? Do you wallow in this at all, or do you then reroute to putting your energy into something else?
Yeah. So, yeah, I was definitely very upset and very, crushed. I do have, memories of those moments. We had so many conversations, so um, many incredible moments. But the whole after like I accepted that I was already um, going after getting a scholarship, which most of my friends and most of the people who play tennis at that level, if you don't make it, then you go to college, which is a great trade-off, right? You get your education, you come to the US, and it's this whole experience. So I accepted that's what I was going to do. And and that was fine, and I was okay with it. But there was nothing else I was really passionate about, and I had already secured this spot in this university called Lander University in Greenwood, South Carolina, because I knew somebody from my hometown who had played there, and so he hooked me up with the coach, and I with the contact, and I talked to the coach, and they accepted me, and great. And then I was going to go and start a university in January or February, but I was like improving so much that I decided, and I asked the coach and I asked the people in Venezuela if I could stay for another 6 months and join the university when the actual year starts, which is August, September, which is different from Brazil and South America. We start in January,
Mhm.
February. And I was like, it's going to be better for me. People are going to be coming from the summer and all this stuff, and I'll have an extra 6 months to be better. And that actually did happen because another 6 months were like phenomenal in terms of my tennis. But that's when acting came into my life, and it all started by um, modeling. Somebody at the gym told me, hey, you should go to my agency. You have a great look, whatever. I went, took some photos. They sent me some print castings, auditions. I booked them. I booked three in a row, my very first time, smiling at the camera. I was like, whoa, this is fun. This is cool. And I'm making money. Wow. I mean, I want to keep doing this. So they kept sending me to castings and
Take your shirt
auditions.
off. Welcome to the game. You're a pretty dude. Take your shirt off. Let's take some pictures. I mean, right? Like that's what it gets
I
to.
know I didn't even have to take my shirt off. I was literally just
Okay.
smiling, and I was like doing like I don't know, like yeah, like just like uh, shirts and clothing print campaigns, and so then I go to my very first commercial acting audition for a Subway commercial, and I had to act, and I was horrible. I had never done that before. It was a very nerve-wracking experience where like everybody was like you had this huge line and you would audition in front of everybody. There's not like you're going to rooms separately, and they also asked us to not use slangs in Caracas, the capital of Venezuela. I spoke with a lot of slangs because a lot of people there, like every uh, 10 words, nine are slangs. And because I was, with my coach and the people there, like that's how I spoke. And they were like, no slangs. So I didn't know how to speak. Like I did have no fluency. So I was
That's a fifth
terrible.
language you now speak, right? In
Yeah,
addition to your four language, you also speak some weird,
yeah.
some language only you and your friends can speak that I
Oh
can't
my God.
decipher it.
Venezuela is a little bit like that. It's like their own dialect. But yeah, so then I was awful. I felt so embarrassed. I called my agent. I remember I was in the car. I called my agent. I'm like, look, this was a very bad experience, and for me to be able to book these commercials, which paid more, and I would like to do that, I need to learn this acting thing. Do you know anybody that I could go to, a coach or school? And they recommended me to Matilda Corral, who is an incredible teacher, is still there. I think her studio just had a 20th anniversary or something like that. And she is somebody who studied at the Actors Studio in New York.
Mm.
And that's what she taught, the method, the Lee Strasberg method of acting. And I went to observe the class. I was fascinated by it. Everybody was emoting. I was very nervous, but like it was fascinating to me and talking about psychology, sports psychology. Like I just loved that so much. And it felt like I had never done any other type of therapy, but it obviously isn't therapy, but it just felt very like so deep, so personal.
Well, you have to. I come from a theater background. That's what I conned my family into paying for me to go to college for. So, yeah, you have to be in the moment. And we are all doing this. And if we're all going to be dumb, we're all going to be dumb. If we're all going to be and everyone's got to do it. And some people see that world and run away from it. Obviously, it bit you, and you got
It
bit by
bit me.
that bug because there is a lot to study there. Um, that was then a positive experience. You enjoyed learning this, and then how long were you at that school?
Yeah, so I think I was in total before I moved to the US for like 2, 3 months. I begged her because at first she didn't want to accept me because she only worked with, professional actors or people like very serious about this. But I'm like, no, I'm serious. I'm an athlete. You tell me what to do, I'll do it. And that's how I read my first Shakespeare play. And so I think I was there for like 3 months, but then I also joined another studio because I met somebody, and this person was also very pivotal for me. When you're talking about how I decided and all these things, he was a very well-known actor in Venezuela, and he took me under his wings, and he took me to his studio that he studied at years ago, and apparently is one of the studio, I think the major studio where a lot of TV soap opera actors come from or studied with. Nelson Ortega is it's his name, and he's amazing. And so I was studying at these two places at the same time while practicing to leave to the US, and I think that was like 3 months. Um,
Are Brazilian soaps like telenovelas? Do they do the earpieces? And is that a skill that you had to learn where?
No, it is a skill for sure. I've never had to do it because I didn't do a lot of soap opera in Miami. I had my first appearances and stuff, but it was very like co-star appearances, so I never had to do it. But I think it's more in Mexico. I don't know if Brazilian, the lead actors do it. I'm not sure. I don't think so. But I'm gonna say this: like I grew up with Brazilian soaps, and I mean, I don't. It's not just me being biased because I'm Brazilian. I think it's across the board. People will say that Brazilian soaps are the best in the world, and so I had a little bit of a let's say a little bit of a judgment on but I didn't grow up watching Mexican soaps or anything like that, but it's just like it was they were different, so I obviously was like these are not as great as the Brazilian ones, but then that's where I started. That's my first TV appearance, and my first TV experience was in a soap, a Telemundo soap opera. But it was this actor who really planted the seed that I was like, well, maybe there's something here for me, because he had such a long, successful career, and you're saying all these things to me, and all of a sudden, I'm like, well, maybe this is what I ought to do. It was very strange. I remember before leaving Venezuela, I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I'm going to study business because there's nothing else to be done. Maybe I'll try this acting thing. And when I get to Lander University, I immediately went to see, if they had an acting class, which they did.
Of course, they have an acting class. They have a whole major for it at the school.
There you go. But that's something also that it's not very common in Brazil. Very, very, very different. So I was like, wow.
Well, a lot of colleges will take your money and won't say to you, hey, maybe this acting thing isn't for you. But to hear that you are tackling that you are looking at this as a business. I think people think about the art side of these things. Of I want to be discovered and I have this path forward, and it's like, nah, there's a production schedule and we need people on time that can be here, that are sober, that when there are lights here and 100 people on set, you can go, excuse me, I'd like the large subway, please. Like whatever the line is, right? Like that is what that is for.
Right.
You mentioned South Carolina. What's your barbecue order?
Oh my God. Barbecue order.
What's your barbecue order?
What do you mean?
Around down there for that.
Oh, I know.
America, the South is known for barbecue. I don't specifically know what South Carolina is known for. Please don't blow me up in the comments, everybody. I'm a rib man. Do you do brisket? What's your barbecue order?
Yeah, I guess I just did look, I come from Brazil, so I'm like, right. I love Brazilian steak, and all this stuff, but
that's not American barbecue.
I know.
A Brazilian steakhouse. You're honoring the animal. We smoked it all night. We smoked it to the ground until it was dead.
But I think like my first experiences in Greenwood, which was the town that the Lander is at, it was just like going to IHOP and Waffle House. That's really what it was.
IHOP is great, I guess. Right. I've never been to Waffle House. Which one of the two do you like more?
Well, I mean, IHOP I prefer, but IHOP you find it even in New York and so many different places, but Waffle House is a little bit more specific. But my favorite one, and because I lived after South Carolina, I lived in Miami. I went to Florida and I lived there for 3 years, and I love Crackle Barrel. When I've gone driving and all this stuff, Crackle Barrel is amazing. So yeah.
There's not a ton by us in California or here in Los Angeles. I don't know where there's a Cracker Barrel, but when we went back east to see my wife's family, half of Thanksgiving was Cracker Barrel, and it was delicious.
Delicious. It's amazing. It's amazing. It really is. It really is.
So with joining into the X-Men, kind of cycling back to the latest stage, what has been your favorite part about being such a I guess you could argue that Sunspot is one of the most well-known Latino characters in comics for the longest time, since the 80s to the present. He's been right up there.
I said this off air. I said Sunspot sounds like Batman and Superman mixed together. He has the money of Bruce Wayne, but gets powers from the sun. He flies. He's super strength. He has heat and light. The character himself has also been trained in fighting. Now, maybe that's a comic book thing and we haven't seen
Yeah,
that
Marsh.
yet.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, okay, eventually you're gonna do right. You're gonna do cool kung fu stuff. That's all great. Uh,
And like Omega level, right? Like
yeah.
power and all this is like it's wild. So
Do
um
you have a favorite? I piggyback this on as well. Do you have a favorite character design? Sometimes he looks like a Ninja Turtle, like he's got a scarf on in some of
oh
his
yeah, yeah,
pictures,
yeah, oh
and then
yeah, yeah.
sometimes, what is your favorite?
Of the ones that that from previous, I think the X Force one, which is the most known one, but even with without the I really like that. That reminds me of Zorro. I'm a big
Yeah,
fan of Zorro, but I prefer without it. But yeah, I think the X Force is one of the coolest ones. But I'm excited to see how the this version will be.
I was about to say we've seen glimpses
Yeah,
of transformation and powers, but we
yeah.
haven't seen the full transformation yet.
Yeah, the
And
car, the car that before the premiere we got sent like the art for the cards and stuff, and that looked really cool. So I mean, I hope it's something like that, or but yeah, I'm really excited to see what's going to be as well.
One thing that I've always loved about the character in the comics, I mean, Sunspot he was a member of the X-Men, he was a member of the X-Force, he did kind of bounce around, and we've also had the X-Force teased in this latest episode with Forge, and then that wall behind him with the photos of like Strong Guy and literally every other member of the X-Force from the '90s.
their classic costumes. They
Yeah,
looked exactly the way that X Force is supposed to look.
it looked like the old Jim Lee drawing, just done in
Yep.
animated form, which was
Yeah.
amazing. But one of my favorite things about Sunspot, I guess, and more of the modern development of the character, his parents had passed away. He inherited all the money in the world, and then he decided to basically say, "Screw you" to the bad guys, and he bought AIM, the company that MODOK and all them are from. He bought AIM, fired everybody, and then made it like the Avengers, another Avengers subsidiary. So he's like, I'm an X-Men, but I'm also working for the Avengers,
He
fully
does, yeah.
flexing his Batman card and saying, I just bought that company because they were bad guys and now they're part of the Avengers. Do you
Yeah, he
think
has. I mean, he has so much like like I think because of the influence of his dad, but also like he gets into this dark place and he does all this kind of like weird things, and he goes back and forth. It's fascinating.
with the way the X-Men 97 show is kind of fixating it right now, you have Sunspot, who is very much like, obviously from episode 3, it was revealed that he's terrified of being a mutant in front of his family. His big fear that the Goblin Queen threw at him was his mom saying, "You're a disgrace to the family. You're not one of us. You're a mutant. You're dirty." All this stuff.
Which is just
Uh,
a normal fear that if my parents said I was a disgrace, like that's a normal fear. Like as an audience member, I'm like, yeah, that would really freak me out. And you transform into a weird thing. But like just that alone is also scary. So yeah.
yeah. So part of my thinking for the show so far is that I'm pretty sure Sunspot has fully transformed into that black, just bubbly look all over, but he's terrified of letting that side out of him. Do you think over the course of this season, Sunspot? I mean, obviously you know the answer and you can't say it, but do you think that as a character, his journey would be one of self acceptance? Do you think that's where they want to go with him over the course of the show, or is he going to be less of that and more just here he is? He's now a member of the X-Men, and here we go. Are they going to focus more on that side of things?
Yeah, look, to be very honest, Taylor, I don't know a lot of, thankfully, right? So I don't have to lie or say anything, but I don't know a lot about like, the second season and how this, they're gonna continue. But I think it's right to say that because, in the first episode even, the beautiful conversation that he has with Jubilee at the end when you first see a little bit of his arm transforming a little bit, right?
Punch,
So it
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Before the funny, I mean, that's one of my favorite scenes, and he goes, gives her the card and all that. And he says it, he's like, being an X-Men, I don't even know how to be myself. I don't know how to accept myself. I thought it was it's such a powerful line. So I think that's the seed that's been planted. I think what you said, it rings very true to me, and I think it's very, very uh, likely that that could be a very major thing of him like accepting himself and and then obviously with the X-Men, with this team and these people, and now like finding potentially love with Jubilee that we saw in his last episode for those who haven't watched. But there's starts this romantic part. I think he will feel that acceptance that he's been looking for, and so yeah, I think so.
Especially if the school opens back up. I feel like that aspect of the X-Men is also one of the fun aspects, that they're in an environment where you are seeing people with their struggles and they're all supporting themselves. And we're now seeing your character get that support, but that bridge of trust is going to take a while to build.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I
Well,
think just like it's such a beautiful homage, and also just like how circling back to the original, how it happened to Jubilee, right? Like how she was introduced and she was, getting trained, and like I said, in the school and all that. I mean, here a little bit differently, but it's very similar in that way.
Well, the show made a promise that someday Jubilee can dash around and do cool circle things. So, like, now I know where she's supposed to be building towards. So, I hope we get to see that evolution, because that's the other great thing about the show as well, is, the way that they are reinterpreting these characters, but also just like showing you that the world is so big. Morph has turned into like 10 different people so far, but
Yeah.
everyone he's turned into is somebody we, the audience, has seen. Morph is going to turn into somebody, Taylor, we're going to be like, did he just turn into that we've never seen before? But now we're going to see that interpretation of the world, which means Morph has seen that individual. But, that's a conversation for another day.
so before we wrap, before we let you go, because you do have a life outside of us right now. Before we wrap, there has been online chatter since episode 1. There was a small tease of Spider-Man with the Daily Bugle newspaper flying across, and then now you have the original showrunner, the original voice actor who did the voice of the '90s Spider-Man show, which historically did cross over with the same X-Men show. Within that '90s ecosystem of TV shows, you had Iron Man, you had Fantastic Four, you had the Incredible Hulk, you had Spider-Man, you had X-Men. You had all these shows that were in Marvel production at the same time, which presumably were all connected to each other. X-Men 97 has been a huge hit, and there's no doubt that one of these shows will probably, some sort of cameo will happen. The internet will lose its collective mind. Is there any character that you specifically want to see cross over into the X-Men some point in the future?
Wow, that's a good question. I haven't been asked that. It might be a very, I don't know, not dumb, but just like and boring. But because also I, together with X-Men, um, I think it came after, but I was always a very big fan of Spider-Man. So, and I think the X-Men movies, and the Wolverine movies, the Logan movies, and the Spider-Man they were always my favorite. So I think it'd be nice. I would love to see Spidey, come and make his appearance and his cameo and be a part of it all. I would love to see that.
I didn't know about this conversation of will he, won't he, until I opened up our Discord today, and I was looking at this. Yi, you don't have to answer any of this, okay? So you don't have to respond to this. Taylor.
This is what I'm talking about, because in the original '90s show, there was an X-Men crossover, and the whole episode was Spider-Man being like, "Am I a mutant? Should I go talk to these people?" And they're like, "No, you've just been bit by a bug. You're not one of us, but we'll still help you."
But...
So,
but the interesting thing about that is, though, that was Spider-Man production that brought all of those people back to do that. So it's very easy for them to bring Spider-Man over. The question is, what Spider-Man are they going to bring? And I asked Taylor this again, Guy, don't answer any of these questions. Where does this X-Men sit in the MCU? Is this one adjacent over from our universe where 90% of this is true? Or is this some sliver where we'll see that, because we've already seen a version of the Beast. And it was Fox Beast, which was fine, but these are the characters that I would like to see represented. So I would like to know where it sits there. I don't know if we get that in this necessarily first go around. I don't think we need to get it, but I think for the longevity of the series, I think it does need to be addressed at some point.
Well, Marvel has already said flat out that everything is now canon because of the multiverse.
Yeah, so okay. Everything is canon.
There is full possibility.
That is true. They have said that, and also we've been seeing it through the live action so much, right? Everything is crossing over, and I mean that's why also I've seen in the internet all the big, talks about bringing some of these animation shows back as well, and who knows, maybe bringing them all back and then crossing them over. Who knows? I mean, again, I'm just very lucky that I don't have the information. I don't know it, so I don't have to be pretending that I don't. So I'm just curious.
My last question to piggyback off Michael. So in the future of the MCU, they're all building toward the big multiversal war, the Secret War. If Marvel called you up and said, "Hey, do you want to be Sunspot in live action for this movie?" would you just immediately say, "Shut up, let's do this," or would you be a little hesitant to wear the X-Men spandex and fly and be on a harness flying around with the?
You are going to be wearing spandex. In fact, take your shirt off. We need you to put on this weird, tight outfit.
Oh, I have no problem with the spandex or any of it. Okay,
great.
So I have to. So being very honest, my first instinct, my first response is to say, "Oh my God, absolutely, that'd be a dream come true." That's like, but there's a part of me of the whole, conversations that have been happening, and obviously with the whole inclusivity thing. So there's things to consider, but I'd be honored to be offered and to have the the possibility of doing that. It'd be definitely an honor.
Do we know what wave of toys Sunspot is, Taylor?
Well, I think he's already supposed to have a figure coming out in the X-Men 97 Wave 3. I mean,
I hope so.
Right? I mean, they gave the mutant executioner a figure in Wave 1, so they got to get Sunspot eventually, right? I mean, he was a throwaway villain for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, you're right. Well, which ones are? I think there's still the Jubilee hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, Jubilee hasn't had her figure yet. We haven't had a proper figure for
there's another one.
There's another one.
YouTube keeps showing me that Cyclops figure every day. It keeps showing it to me.
I go through all the time. I'm like, I want to buy all these figures. Like, they're so cool. But I think what we've already got so far, we've got Storm. I mean, they could obviously make a second costume for Storm because she's already rocking the jean jacket look, so they could easily do another Storm. They don't have Jubilee or Sunspot yet, for sure.
And I think and there's another one. I forget which one. It is because I went to GameStop a couple of weeks ago and they had the poster. I think it was after the premiere, and I was so excited. And they didn't have. I mean, everything was almost sold out from the first batch, and they had only a couple. And then they said it's not going to come out until I think the second or the third, and it was Jubilee, Sunspot, and there's another one. But they said at the time, they said one of the hardest ones to find is Nightcrawler. That is just like sells out all the time.
Yeah, well, according to the Google right here, I just pulled it up. They've got so far the only leaked figures for including on Wave 3 is Sunspot and Jubilee. So they are supposed to be Wave 3 whenever that does occur. But
let's go, Wave 3. We're ready.
Let's listen. I'm so happy that in the world of streaming, it's sometimes very difficult to gauge these things, even when us nerddom is freaking out about it. I'm happy that this is tied to some toy sales because those numbers are not going to lie. And if I'm sure little kids go, "Daddy, I want that toy." I keep telling my wife, I'm going to have to get like 3 of these toys. They pose so great. I mean, I'm not trying to do an ad for the toys right now, but I'm glad that there's this other metrics of like understanding that there is an audience there. And I hope that they have more places to go besides this first season. I hope this isn't just a one and done. I hope Marvel invests more in whether this is young adult or adult animation, wherever we want to go with it. I feel like DC's been doing this for the past forever been making one-off stories with really interesting characters, and you hear voice actors pop up all over the place. So I'm glad to see Marvel putting its toe and bringing such talented people like yourself into the fray.
Thank you, Michael. That's very kind. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for having me. This was an absolute blast, and I agree with you. I hope that it continues, and with all the success that it's just like sparks so much more creativity and opportunity, and yeah, I mean it's such an exciting time. Absolutely.
Guy, you came on the show, which means I have to ask you: have you seen a UFO?
No.
Now I've asked this to people, and they'll go, "Nope, never seen an unidentified object." Weird orbs, things going in and out of the water, spooky noises in the night. You've been in a lot of places, and those places have many a folklore of what dwell in the forest. Have you seen glowing red eyes in the forest?
We're talking about the Mothman.
Chupacabras? I mean, they're all over. I mean, there's lots of different stuff.
No, I have not.
Okay. Which didn't disappoint me. I just wanted to know.
For a little bit of a background, I've known Michael for over 30 years. And when we were kids, I was the one who was like, it's all real. And Michael was like, it's not real. And now that we've gotten older, he's like, it's all real. And I'm like,
no. I love that. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I look, there's so many things like that like, I'm like, it's not that I don't believe it until I see it. I believe it and I don't. It's a weird thing. It's like there's so many like my grandma used to tell me all these like ghost stories and spirit stories, and her house was haunted and all these things, and I grew up with a lot of that, but I have not experienced and I even like when I lived in Florida, I went to St. Augustine. And hey, I did the whole tour. I did the photos. I went to the prison cells and all these things, and I saw the orb or what those. And I was like analyzing. I went to the internet. Trying to understand it. I was like in the end, I'm like, all right, that's fine. I mean, if it ever happens to me, great. And if it does, I mean, maybe I'll get really freaked out. I don't know, but until then, it's like, look, I won't say that they don't exist, but I just don't know.
You're a much braver boy than I. Your grandma said the house was haunted. You're like, no, it's not. And then just lived your life normal. That's crazy. You gave it no power.
But when we were there, when we were there, it was. I was very, very because it was my grandma from my dad's side of the family, and so they lived in Peru, and this house was massive with like 5 floors, and we would stay because my grandfather was a plastic surgeon, so he had his clinic on the first floor and all this stuff. And sometimes there were so many people in the house, we stay like on the second floor where like was the patient, for the holidays, right? It was the patient beds and stuff. And I remember like, I wasn't like 5 or 6. I was already like, I don't know, like a teen. And sometimes I would go to sleep. I would be there by myself, this humongous, like full of beds, and I was trying to go to sleep, and knowing the stories, I was terrified. That was so bad.
You grew up in a ghost factory. People died there, and then you grew up in a ghost factory.
No, nobody died. It was just a plastic surgeon.
Okay.
Practice. Yeah.
Yeah. You're talking about a magical Encanto house that's a ghost factory that just funnels ghosts upwards.
Yeah. I mean.
Okay. All right, Michael.
But maybe one day I will let you know, Michael. I will let you know.
Thank you.
Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today. For everyone who wants to find you, where can they find you on social media?
By the way, first, I just want to say again, like Michael just like did a great, and then like this fireworks happened, and I'm like, amazing. That's what it is. We're like, ending with, oh, there you go. Now there's always something. It's like ending with a bang. This is really
tricks
awesome.
to the trade, my brother.
Right.
Finding these old emoji things that his computer.
Look at that! Oh my God! Like this is like we're like techno music going on. Let's go.
He has a heart one too that throws hearts at everyone.
Wow, he knows all the tricks. All the tricks. But people can find me. Mostly, I'm on Instagram at Gui Agustini1. I have a Twitter account, X, but I'm not very active there, mostly Instagram. So hit me up, say hello. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you, everybody, for, supporting. Everybody was excited, and who've been reaching out. And I hope you guys enjoyed this, this time here with us. And yeah, hit me up. I love to to get back to you guys and hopefully get to meet some of you eventually. Yeah.
All right.
Con season is a go. You will be seeing us. So just, get prepared. And if those leaks and rumors are real, get ready to start signing some action figures.
I am ready.
His pen hand, he's got a strong pen hand.
I got some like coaching recently, like I went to WonderCon. We had the X-Men panel, and seeing Lenore and AJ, everybody, like I was like, oh, getting my first like master class here, learning what which signature I'm gonna do and how to do it. Like, yeah, it was very cool. Yeah,
you're gonna need a lot of Purell probably as well, backup pens, water.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Well, Michael, take us home as always.
Taking us home. Thank you all of our wonderful patrons over at patreon.com/theculturednerd. If you would like to support this podcast, and you should, head over onto the patreon.com/theculturednerd. Here's all of our wonderful, wonderful patrons. Thank you so much for all of your support. Your host has been Taylor Murphy. I'm your co-host, Michael Santel. Our logo was by Jose Navarro, and our intro was by Taylor Murphy and Jay Stu. If you have your cell phones out, or if you're listening to this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. It's a silly thing, but it makes a world of difference to us. And the comments down below, what adventures would you like to see the X-Men get into? We've seen where they're going. Spider-Man might be in the works. Who else would you like to see show up in the X-Men cartoon? I'm Michael Santel. That's Taylor Murphy.
Yes. Sorry, I don't know. Were you setting me up? I don't know.
And we'll see all you kids and cats next time.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.